Hi, I'm İlkay and welcome to my tutorial series Lightning Sibelius Mega Chapter, the Execute Commands family, so the 9th Symphony of Bob Zawalich. What you have heard has been done only by using Note Performer inside Sibelius without any further mix and mastering process. To dive in depth with Note Performer's playback possibilities inside Sibelius, you can find my MP dedicated chapters in description. Let's start with our mega chapter, but first let me explain why I have called this chapter as the 9th Symphony of Bob Zawalich. The next few minutes are going to be about the music history, so you can jump this part if you are not interested. But if you are a music history geek like me, I believe you might find this topic very interesting. As you know, the number 9 is a peak number for lots of great composers from the point of view of symphonies. Beethoven has written 9 symphonies, and his 9 game-changing symphonies have been a great inspiration for many of his successors. Brahms has written his first symphony in 21 years, and it has considered as the 10th symphony of Beethoven. It's also known that Brahms has gone in depression, and in one of his letters he has written to his conductor friend to Hermann Levy. He said, "I shall never write a symphony. You can't have any idea what it's like always to hear such a giant marching behind you." Of course, the giant was Beethoven. Bruckner has composed 9 symphonies too. There is one thing most people know about Franz Schubert, it's that his most popular symphony is unfinished. And there's a second thing about Franz Schubert is he only wrote 9 symphonies. Dvorak has written 9 symphonies. 4 of them has been published after his death. Of course, we cannot say they did not surpass this number just to pay respect to Beethoven. But as a very interesting fact, Mahler also has written 9 symphonies, but he was also believing that the number 9 was a cursed number, and it would have costed to his life if he would have surpassed this number. And he died while he was composing his 10th symphony. And Arnold Schoenberg, whose music was heavily influenced by Mahler, described the curse of the 9th in an essay on the composer. He who wants to go beyond it must pass away. It seems as if something might be imparted to us in the 10th which we ought not yet to know, for which we are not ready. Those who have written a 9th stood too close to hereafter. Of course, this was just an obsession, and there are many composers who have surpassed the number 9 and stayed alive, such as Mozart, Shostakovich, Haydn, by composing lots of symphonies. I share a link of an article in description about this topic, and if you want to dive in depth, you can download and read this. The article is in Italian language, but you can just Google translate it and enjoy that. So I wanted to call this chapter's name as the 9th Symphony of Bob Zawalich because he has gifted a great service to the community. And it is completely free. So kudos to him, and by returning to our topic, let's listen to the first movement of his symphony, the Execute Commands plugin. Boom! Here it is. Before I start to talk about it, let me just show what exactly it does. As a composer, I write lots of percussion rolls in my scores, and to write it, you need to do lots of steps. But what if I can automate these tasks and I can have the same solution just with seconds? And here it is. The Execute Commands family has executed 17 commands and automated these tasks for me. Okay, some little story behind of it because this is very important to understand what's going on behind. As you know, Sibelius has a strong sword which is called plugins. Plugins are the little programs which automizes repetitive and time-consuming tasks so you can concentrate more on the artistic problematics instead of dealing with the technical problems. Sibelius has shipped with more than 150 plugins, and you can find and download more than 500 third-party plugins for free, and many of them has been written by Bob Zawalich. Here comes the best part. You can write also your own plugins, but this might be very difficult if you are not familiar with the coding language and programming. Actually, this was. Because with the 2021.2 update, Sibelius developers decided to offer to their clients a super no-brainer way to make them write their own plugins macros, which is called Sibelius Execute Commands. By simply explaining it, Sibelius Execute Commands are the daily tasks you do when you use Sibelius. From very basics to very complex things. For example, delete, enter, filter slurs, filter notes, filter first notes, enter voice 1, enter notes, etc. etc. So any of these are basically a Sibelius Execute commands. To see a full list of it, you can go to File, Plugins, Manuscript Language Reference, and here you can go to page 96. And here you will see all command IDs, so Sibelius Execute commands. Okay, we can finally start to talk about the Execute Commands plugin and about all these codes and how to use them in our plugins. I know it took so long to arrive here, but I need that you understand the whole story behind of it. Let's first download the Execute Commands plugin and let's run it. Go to File, Plugins, Install Plugins, and from the menu choose All Plugins and write Execute Commands. Choose it from the list and click on Install. After you have installed the plugin, you need to quit your Sibelius and restart it. I presume that you have already downloaded the plugin and restarted your Sibelius, and we are ready to run it. Go to Command Search and write its name. I strongly recommend you to assign a shortcut to it, so you are not going to write its name every time to the command search. For example, Alt-Shift-E is a free slot for this. Okay, here we are. Let's talk about the user interface first. During the course, we will see the functions of each of these buttons. And at the left part, you see all tabs. And at the right part, you see all the codes regarding to these tabs. These are the commands you have just seen in the manual reference list before. So basically, all you need to do is to choose the commands you want that Sibelius executes and put them into this list in order by clicking on Add Command to List button. Let's write a very simple plugin so you can understand how easy to use it. Let's presume that I have a project where I need to add an octave above of the second notes of the chords and add them also staccato and accent. So this is the situation we have, and we want to have this result. I know this has no meaning, but it's going to be a good example to show how the system works. To do so, I need filter first the second notes from the top. So let's find this command by writing it to find commands. And add it to our list by clicking on the Add Command to the Command List button. Oops. Okay. Now we need an octave above command. And we find it at interval an octave above. And we add it to our list by clicking Add Command to Command List button. Now I need a staccato. And I will need an accent. As you see, I have added all the commands to the list. The main and one rule is you need to be very careful with the command order because the plugin executes the commands in the order you put them into the list. For this particular plugin, it won't be any problem, but for complex plugins, the order is very important. Anyway, we will come there too. Let's try if our plugin works by clicking on Execute Command List button. Boom! It works. And now let's create a third-party plugin by using this code flow, which is the main purpose of the Execute Commands plugin. It is so easy. I rerun the Execute Commands plugin by triggering its shortcut. Click on the new plugin button and fill its name. You don't need to do any changes here. And I'm going to call it as my first plugin. _CP. And I will click on Fill Menu Name. Okay, and all you need to do is right now to click on the OK button. And voila, now you have your own plugin. Right now, quit and restart Sibelius so it can scan your newly written plugin. I presume that you have already done it. And let's try our newly written plugin. I write its name to the command search, which is named as my first plugin. But before I do my selection, my first plugin, and here it is. And I run it. Boom! Everything works perfectly. Now you can also assign a personal shortcut to it to use it with a single key hit in a lightning speed. And more importantly, you can produce as much as plugin you want. To add a custom shortcut to it, just go to File, Preferences, and Keyboard Shortcuts, Plugins, and find your My First Plugin. Here it is. And just click on the Add button and write any key you want to use it to trigger this plugin. Okay, it's like I can hear your question. Yes, Bora, but what? Do I need to write many plugins and to add custom shortcuts to any one of them, and I have to remember all of them? Isn't that a long workflow? And here comes in the game the second moment of the 9th Symphony of Bob Zawalich, which is called Run Command Macro plugin. What exactly it is? Let me run it for you. Basically, it is a visual list which you can load 35 of your personal plugins, macros, produced by the Execute Commands plugin. And there are lots of advantages to use Run Command Macro plugin together Execute Commands plugin. For example, you do not need to memorize any of your personal plugins. There is a visual list in front of you and you can just run your plugins with your mouse click. Or better, you can call them using the key shortcuts of the list where you see at the left part. What you see here is all my personal plugin set, and soon I will make a dedicated chapter to them and present you all. Before we start to use it, we need to download it. So go to File, Plugins, Install Plugins, and from here choose all plugins and write Run Command Macro. And find it in the list and click on the Install button. As always, you need to quit Sibelius and restart it again so it scans your newly downloaded plugins. I highly recommend you to assign a custom shortcut to this plugin. For example, the KU is the empty slot, so you can call your plugin list with a very simple K hit as I do. Let's give the same example and see how we can import your custom plugins into Run Command Macro plugin. First, let's add the same commands into the list. This time, instead of exporting it as a plugin, we are going to export it as a command macro file. To do so, just click on the Export List button and put a name to your newly produced macro file. I'm going to call it my first macro. And hit the key Enter. Voila, it has already done it. And now, quit Execute Commands plugin and run your Run Command Macro plugin. I'm going to run by writing its name to the command search. And as you see, you will notice here your first plugin is automatically imported. You can produce as much as macro file you want and to have amazing combinations, and anything you produce will be automatically inserted here inside Run Command Macro plugin as long as you use Export List option. There is also another advantage which makes it amazingly useful. Let's presume that you want to modify this macro file and you want to add it also a Tenuta articulation. Now, if you have exported your macro as a plugin, you need to rewrite everything from beginning and then again export it as a plugin and again to assign a new shortcut. But instead of it, if you would have used Export as List option, you can also import it by using Import List button. And as soon as you import, you will see your code flow at the right part of the list and you can do whichever modification you need. Then you can check if it works. After you are sure about it, you can simply again export it and you can save it with the same name or with another name. So I'm going to just modify this code flow and I'm going to add a tenuto. Okay, and I'm going to try it on a newly written chords, example chords or something like that. Okay, yeah, here it is. So let's try it if it works. Boom, it works. We have also our tenutos. So what you need to do right now, as I said just before, just go here, go to the export list button and just save it again. Just change it and voila, it's modified. And here you see my all list. I was one of the main beta testers of this huge project, and I was really amazed at Bob's genius for how he has written a program which is amazing user friendly. Okay, let me give you some demonstration. First of all, this is my composer set. With run command macro, you can also have different sets, and each set can have 35 plugins or macros, however would you like to call them. Okay, this is my composer set. I have also an engraving set which is work in progress. I will share that soon with you too. But right now my composer set is complete. So if you want to get it, if you just contact me via email and just send me an email to my email address. You can find it in link in description and you can just read it on the screen. Okay, let's start. First of all, I want to have all the stems down here, and let me choose also here. I want all the stems here down. So what I'm going to do is I run my command macro and I just go to flip notes down and boom, everything works perfectly. I use a lot, one of my most used macros when I compose, it's shift next bar, and here it is, shift everything to next bar. I use this a lot, and if I say that okay, this is not going to work well, I'm just going to take them all to the previous bar and I just shift everything to the previous bar. And when I compose or arrange or orchestrate, I change my mind continuously. And let's say that I have this kind of a situation and I want to get rid of all the 8 notes in this passage exactly. Okay, this has not a musical meaning, but it's going to be a good example. So I just run my run command macro and I filter my 8s and I just get rid of them. Or you can also customize your filtering settings, and for example, you can also filter only 16 notes. Or you can filter any kind of note lengths you want, you use. Alright, this one I'm going to show you is one of my most used macros. As a composer, I have a post-Bartokian musical language, and in this music language, use a lot diminished scales for horizontal and for vertical. So diminished scales and diminished chords. Okay, I have this melodic line, and I would like to have a parallel and vertical motion of the diminished chords. So what I'm going to do is I choose all this line or ostinato or melodic line, whatever would you like to call it, and I run my diminished fifth down copy. And when I paste my copied line, it already pastes me the diminished fifth down version of the same line or same phrase. And I'm going to do it again for the minor third. I run my macro and I paste it and I just take it one octave lower. Voila, it works perfectly. So when you listen it, yeah, it sounds harsh and I like it. Okay, let me show you my favorite plugins, my very favorite plugins, and I love them. These are copy stuff below, copy stuff above, move stuff below, and move stuff above. Okay, let's say that I want to have all this flute part one octave lower in oboes. And what I'm going to do is I'm just bringing my copy stuff below plugin and I just take them one octave lower. And I want to have also the same thing for violin 1, and I don't want to have this violin 2 plays me this accompaniment in this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just running my copy stuff below and it works perfectly. And let me show one example from the move stuff above. I don't want this accompaniment to be here, and I want that bass trombone place that. So what I'm going to do is I just run my move stuff above plugin, and boom, voila, it works perfectly. Now you are not going to see them in this list because I have assigned each one of them a specific shortcut because I use them a lot. The next one I'm going to show you is especially very useful for orchestrators. And let's say that I have this horn part and I want to be played that also from the pistons. And what I'm going to do is I just copy it to stuff below, and then I realize that the bottom notes are really very low. And what I'm going to do is I just run my command macro and I transpose below note an octave above. Boom. It works perfectly. And also the contrary works perfectly. Let's say that I want to move this to the stuff above. I move everything because I don't want pistons to play me anything, or I want to cancel them for some reason. So what I'm going to do is I just bring down one octave lower and I just transpose top note an octave low. Okay, the next one I'm going to show you is a really very fancy one, and I'm going to show you directly without any talk. So this would have required lots of time without a macro, and the contrary of that is also possible. I'm going to choose my next example and I run my macro. Voila, it works perfectly. Now normally this new workflow can be already well enough for lots of you. So you can finish watching the video and start applying this new setup for your workflow, and you can speed it up in an amazing amount. But if you want to stay, I would like to show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Yeah, this is a Matrix reference, and I'm a huge fan of this movie and of Don Davis, who was the music composer. This movie has an amazing score, by the way. Let's continue with the third movement of Bob's Symphony, Command Utils Code Expansion Pack. Here the things get really crazy, and actually the name of this plugin is not even this. But I really want to call this in a fancy way because it does a fancy job. So what is this? Command Utils Code Expansion Library is the expansion pack which contains very specific commands which Sibelius doesn't offer natively. So you can combine native Sibelius commands plus Command Util commands and make your hybrid plugins. It sounds confusing, but trust me, it is not. First, let's download it. Again, go to File, Plugins, Install Plugins. Click on All Plugins and write cmd utils. And here it is. Click on Install. And after you have installed it, remember to quit and restart your Sibelius so it can scan your plugins. Okay, I presume that you have already done this, and I run my Execute Commands plugin. I'm running it by using my shortcut Alt-Shift-E, and right now you will notice something has changed inside of Execute Commands. As you see, we have new tabs here at the left side, and inside of them we have lots of new commands. Let me explain some of these commands. As you see, we have lots of different selection codes which they help you to keep your code longer. So we might say that lots of these codes are doing the most important job in your code workflow. Yes. For example, you can filter the very first notes on a selection by using select first note code no rest each stuff Q code. And this will allow you to filter the very first notes of a selection, as well as you can also filter the very last notes of a selection. But the very best one is the save and restore selection codes. Let me show them to you. Here they are. What basically they do are, they memorize the selection you have done and then they restore it whenever you use the restore selection command. It sounds complicated, but try to understand of a logic of a computer. To do multiple actions inside a bar, a selection, you need to teach to Sibelius which bars or the selection is going to work on. Let me show you an example so you understand the logic much better. I have written a very specific plugin which brings me the top notes of a chord to the stuff above, and then it connects the note handles to the stuff below. So basically it is this. Exactly. It's super common thing when you specially write for piano or instrument which uses grand stuff. Let's crack the code and understand better what we have done here. I run execute commands and I import my list inside. Now you can see my code flow here. The very first thing I do is using the save selection command utils command because I want that Sibelius learns the selection I do. Then I use two native Sibelius Execute commands, filter bottom notes and make it to turn a voice to. So Sibelius filters bottom notes and make them to me a second voice. Now normally here Sibelius quits the selection, and if I wouldn't have used the save selection command, there wouldn't have been any way to tell Sibelius choose me whole bar again. But since we have used the save selection command, now I use the restore selection and Sibelius remembers the bars I have selected, and voila. I can prolong my macro and keep entering other native codes, as you see, such as filter voice to, filter notes and chords. I don't want any rest to be filtered, then I move them as stuff below, then I run adjust stems plugin, which prolongs the stem lengths. As you see, if there was not command utils code expansion pack, I wouldn't be able to write such a complex hybrid code flow. And here comes a big example of a to be published soon project, Rachmaninov Third Concerto for Piano Solo Transcription. I worked the main engraver for this huge project, and as you see, without this plugin, preparing this patch would have taken hours of work. With the help of this plugin, I have written this page less than an hour. Another super useful code I use extremely much from this command utils code expansion pack is extend selection full bar right and left. Here it is. I have turned this into a new plugin and I have assigned a custom shortcut to it. And this little beast helps me to choose whole bar. Now, you might say yeah, but are you sure that it is necessary? You can just click on the bar with your mouse. Yes, you're right, but when you work with orchestral files, you constantly zoom in and out, for example. So when you need to do a passage selection for only one bar, it might be really tedious because when you have zoom outed, you can't click easily to the empty parts of the bar. So what you need to do is zoom in and you have to click that empty part, but then it becomes constantly a zoom in and out game. So with this very simple code, you can just click any part of a bar, then run it. Boom. It will instantly choose the whole bar and then you can copy or paste or do whatever you want. Okay, now the fourth and the last movement of Bob's symphony, father and the child plugins. What is this and why do we need this? Okay, to be able to use father and child plugins, you need to download CMD Utils first, because this is a very specific way of using the plugins. I would like to give an example to tell you in a better way. In my musical language, I use a lot string runs in the string section where they are in diminished fifth relation between them. As you see, to copy the diminished fifth below, I use another third-party plugin which is called add interval plugin. So I'm going to run it by writing it command search. And as you see here, it's already in my very last command which adds diminished fifth below. But since I use this plugin exclusively for this purpose and nothing more, that would have been really great if I can manage to use only this command inside this plugin by not calling this whole user interface. And here where the father and child plugin mentality comes in the game. The very basic is you have to download the father plugin. So let's download this one since we have given an example from this plugin. Go to File, Plugins, Install Plugins, and download Add Interval plugin. Remember to quit and restart your Sibelius after you have downloaded it. I presume that you have already done it and we are ready to go. I'm running my Execute Commands plugin by triggering its shortcut Alt-Shift-E. So as soon as you have installed it, you will see it in our Execute Commands a new Command Utils tab which is called Add Intervals. Here it is. And yeah, I think you have already understood it. Now we can use any of these child commands and we can add them inside our code flows. For example, I have written a diminished 5 copy plugin where I choose a bar and I run this plugin, and when I paste the clipboard, it pastes automatically diminished fifth below of the bar I have run the plugin. Let me show that. First I select everything and I run my run command macro and I go to diminished fifth copy down and I run it. Then when I paste it to the second violence, it will already copy it the diminished fifth below. So if we want to crack the code of this plugin, I'm going to run execute commands and I'm going to import my list and I'm going to choose diminished fifth below and I'm going to open it, and you will see I have used here the first save selection. I always use the save selection, and the second one, add interval below diminished Q. So this is a command utils code and which is a child plugin. Okay, let me show you some different examples. All my filtering plugins you see here are the child plugins, and the father of this plugin is filter nodes by duration. So what basically I do is I use one by one all of these little plugins without calling this whole user interface, and it works like a charm, because it works also much faster. Because if I wouldn't have used these singular plugins or macros, how you want to call them, I would needed to use advanced filter, and it's a great tool, but you need to tweak with lots of settings before doing any filtering option. So this is much faster and much effective. I find it much faster and much effective. So for example, I want to filter here only the 16th notes. I just choose the area and boom, it's all filtered. Or for example, I just want to add staccatos on them. Yes, I know this has no meaning right now, but it's going to be a good example. So how does it work? It works the same as add interval plugin we have just seen a couple of minutes before. So first you need to download filter nodes by duration plugin, and this is going to be our father plugin. As soon as you have downloaded it, you will notice that we have new commands here like filter duration nodes, equal, etc. And what you need to do is just add them to your command list, export them as a list, or make a new plugin from them. But I strongly suggest you to export them as list, because in that way you can call them via run command macro plugin as I do. And yes, I hope you liked the video and I hope you find it useful. As you see, this is my new Lightning Sibelius tutorial series format. You will see me at the left corner of the video while I lecture the lesson. If you like the chapter and my tutorial series, please click on thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. Meantime, you can also follow Lightning Sibelius page on Facebook, and if you want to support my channel, you can donate it via PayPal button up here. Thank you so much, and see you soon with another mind-blowing Lightning Sibelius chapter.